So I apologize ahead of time for the nature sounds on this podcast here. The weather has been fantastic the past couple of days here in New York, and I'm sitting outside. I spend so much time plugged into a computer all day, plugged into the Matrix. It's nice to just sit outside with my portable paint station and work through some stuff. I'm working on some swooping hawks, finishing up another longbow for my Battletech mercenary company, because you can never have too many longbows. And I finished up the last of my Zombicide Black Plague, the guest boxes. I'm working up the courage to start Conan. My goal for this year, for 2018, is to get Conan done and to get Massive Darkness done. It's going to be interesting to see. So a gaming club, right? The reason why I play miniature wargaming is there's something, and miniature wargaming could be board gaming. I got to finish my Dark Souls also, but I'm waiting for the second wave and the big mega bosses to kind of drop. I want to do everything in one kind of process on there. But wargaming with miniatures, board gaming, playing games like this, it's an analog experience where I find you can control the pace and you can kind of unplug from the reality, the digital reality that is not reality. It's very meditative. It's very interesting on there. But you need people to play with. You need that social, we want that social aspect of it, because you're going to grow in terms of ability, and you're going to be exposed to different points of view. So the bigger the group, the more games, the better you do. But how do we do this? Starting a club, or if you're part of a gaming club or a gaming group, whether it's at a store or a hobby center, how do we expand that? How do we get bigger? How do we get better? I'm going to share with you the DNA, the secret sauce, the magic formula that it took me a while to kind of place this, but the magic formula, the secret sauce that I have seen used and that I've used in the clubs that I've been a member of and continue to be a member of. Clubs that do this, or groups that use this, grow. You don't use this, you're going to shrink. You might not notice it, but eventually down the road, your club's going to close and you're going to be like, what the heck happened? 4 points. And underneath this podcast is a link to my blog. The article is up there. It goes into a lot more details and kind of addresses some additional points that are going to be kind of outside of the scope of this podcast, depending on the gaming system you like. But this is enough to get you started if you're thinking about taking that leap for a club, or you're looking to interject some mojo into your club. First, the acquisition of miniatures. The acquisition of miniatures. You need to have your club members or the group members constantly acquiring new units. Now, depending on your system, Battletech, Warhammer 40,000, that doesn't mean going out and buying a new army, thousands of dollars. It might be just adding a new tank or a new mech, or every couple of months, a new unit. And the reason why this is important is because as the army grows, it's going to force the other members to grow. So you face my army every week. We have a great time playing. Then I come in and I'm like, hey, I bought a longbow, Battletech mech. Bam, here it is on the table. You've never faced that before. This adds new freshness to the game. Then you have to counter it. And I don't know about you, but there's been times that I've been playing Battletech and Warhammer 40,000 where my opponents, who I really love, a great group of guys, they bring some new stuff to the table. I get trashed and I go home. Now I've got to taste that defeat all week. But I'm sitting there on eBay and on the Battletech wiki looking at stats and mechs, being like, okay, we're going to do this in 2 weeks. I'm going to be like, bam, here's a new mech. Let's deal with that. So it creates the acquisition of new units, and playing them forces the players to grow. It keeps the game, regardless of the mission and where you're playing, fresh. It introduces new tactics. How do we do this? Well, everyone approaches gaming from a different perspective in terms of ability, in terms of time, in terms of financial resources or material resources. So you don't want to pass a rule or a law in your club that says, look, every month you got to have a new unit. That's not realistic. We want it to be organic. We don't want it to be something forced. You encourage it by showcasing new units, or if you have a bigger army, like my Battletech collection is quite large, because I'm obsessive about it, lending out some mechs to other players. Hey, try this mech out. See how it is. If you're part of a big club, can you negotiate with a local gaming store? Or if the gaming store hosts you, hey, can you offer like a day sale, maybe once every couple of months, club members, if they buy something, 10% off? Or can you negotiate a slight reduction as a club member, some sort of benefits on there? If you run a gaming club where you're collecting dues to pay for materials and renting a spot, can you speak to the treasurer and maybe take a couple of dollars, buy a unit for the gaming system that you play, and then once a month, it doesn't have to be expensive. It could be like a tactical marine squad or a mech or an X-wing ship, and do a random raffle, giving it away to a member. So there's ways that you can encourage this organically. Number 2, painting. Now this is something that has a lot more detail, painting the miniatures. And what I'm going to touch on for painting, why it's important, it builds point number 3 that we're going to look at. But painting also bonds you to your army. You are investing. It's one thing to collect, it's one thing to build. But as soon as you paint, mentally you own that miniature. It is you. And you see an army on the table, and that time invested, that takes us to point number 3, where now this is the real deal. Now this is your army. You have put your stamp of ownership on there. So we want to encourage painting. Different levels, different abilities. Well, okay, watching YouTube and doing other things. But as a club, which goes into point 4, point 3 is battling, point 4 is socializing. Going into point 4 here, for a second, you can hold a paint night at the club. Everyone gets together 2 or 3 hours, and we're going to paint. Bring what you're working on. And some of the new members can work with veteran members, and they can kind of help them build. But you can have that community where, look, even if your schedule in real life, this annoying thing called real life that competes with gaming, even if that's a little bit challenged, if we can all get together on a Friday or a Saturday night, 3 or 4 hours, and just everybody sits down and paints like crazy, you can get through a squad tabletop. You can make some tremendous progress on there, because the synergy bouncing back and forth between the group is massive. So that's point 2. Point 3, battle. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. Creating a narrative, creating a simulation on the tabletop, stepping out of reality for a moment, and being in that game. And I use the example of when you have 2 painted armies invested in by 2 players. When you have some amazing wargaming terrain with smoke effects and model terrain painted up perfect. You've got the background music going on. Depending on the venue, you have the appropriate adult drink going on. You step back from that table, and it's a reality. You step back, and it's real there with what you're looking at. This is something that other hobbies or other endeavors don't have. So we want to encourage that. You want to encourage members to come and battle. You do that by playing different missions. And as your club grows, now maybe you can have more narrative missions and more competitive missions, depending on the segment of the group and how they like to play. You can start to explore big mega battles, where it's like, hey, this Saturday we're going to have a mega battle. Everybody show up, bring your models, and we've got hundreds and hundreds of mechs and tanks or whatever, planes on either side. That's pretty powerful on there. And the way you build this part of your club is, if possible, a Facebook page, a website, some sort of online account, YouTube channel. Show off the member models. Show off what's going on in the club. So if someone misses a Monday night or a Tuesday night, they can pop on there on Wednesday and see some of the pictures of the battles and the different armies. That synergy of battling. And then finally now the social aspect. If possible, depending on the venue and the time, I've always found it ideal to have a little cool down time. I've said the only thing better than playing games, besides winning, is discussing and debating what if and talking about amazing battles. So if you have it where battles end at around 9, and maybe from 9 to 9:30 is just some time to sit at the tables and talk and socialize and stuff, that's something that you can't replicate online. That's something that you can't replicate in other experiences. You're building that bond as club members, which goes into points 1, 2, and 3. So while these points are numbered, acquisition, paint, battle, socialization, it's more of a synergistic circle where one is feeding into the other. Depending on your gaming system, Can you, as a club, go to events? Are there, in the past, Games Day and various X-Wing events that we would go to as club members? Can you do that on there, which again is only going to reinforce that, and you pump those into number 1, number 2, and number 3. That is the magic formula. Acquisition of models, painting models, battling it out, and socialization. You nurture, you grow, you hit up those 4 points, you will notice not only the acquisition of new members through discovery, but also your retention rate of members and your return rate of members. When a lot of club members, again, real life kind of gets in the way, they need to pause for a little bit while, maybe because of work or school commitments. But if you keep them engaged through those 4 points, they will return to your club. And ultimately that's good, because I love to paint, I love to build, I love to talk about games. Those are all amazing hobbies. But it is about rolling those dice. It is about playing the game, and it is about creating those memories on the tabletop.